Siis kun sä katsot, tuossa on toi Big Neu. Tää oli kai tää Anston. Joo, Anston. Me ollaan tossa kulmassa. Niin silloin kun tuossa on se Kings ja Wenworth, tuolla se on toi. Niin mennään.
I go. There you go.
Come on. My name's Trey, and the horse's name is Bob. Bob is a Belgian drive horse, probably around 15 years old. These Belgians are bred to work. They can pull about 4 times their own body weight. It's pretty impressive. The usual weight right around the belly. It's 1838. You might be able to see the steeple leans just a little bit. There's a slight tilt on the building. There was an earthquake in 1886 that did a lot of damage. That's the main reason it leans. And it was built that way hoping that if the gunpowder did explode, the explosion would go up, instead of going out. But when that was built, this was a walled city, and that's just one thing you're supposed to cover with the history, is that in 1704, they built a wall around Charlestown, and this wall is 13 deep. That burial ground there is old. That goes back to the 1680s. It's the oldest graveyard in town. But that's the 4th building they built on that spot.
Pink house.
He tried that in Charleston, and in his notes he wrote that he received a letter from a man who accused him of meddling with heaven's artillery by sending a kite up in the air. And this was the home of John Rutledge over here on the right. John Rutledge was pretty important. He served as he was the president of South Carolina for a short while. That South Carolina was independent. People here knew him as the dictator of South Carolina, and it's believed that he was a big influence on the United States Constitution as well. And his brother Edward Rutledge lived right across the street in this house. Now Edward Rutledge, I might have mentioned him earlier. He's buried at St. Philip's. He was the youngest signer of the Declaration of Independence. And remember, when the Revolutionary War broke out, this was the wealthiest of the colonies. And throughout from 1700 to 1775, 40% of Africans who were imported in North America came through the port of Charleston, and that really had a lot to do with that. Just the brownstone had to be brought down from Connecticut, and it was very expensive to bring it down here. So we wound up running out of money before the steeple was built. But part of the lore behind the building, you see the stars imprinted into the stones there. Part of the story is that each star shows 1 man-hour of work that went into building it. I don't know how valid that is, but that's part of the story. Neat place though. They're talking about building the steeple too. It's been 101 years. It's a symbol of hospitality. It is kind of strange that the pineapple's revered so much here, and you can't even grow a pineapple here. But the story is that a lot of poor whites in Charleston worked on trading vessels going to Europe. It takes a while to get to that sort of size. As we pass by here, y'all look how deep the house is.
Oh my gosh.
And in the back there, that white brick portion would have served as the slave quarters. For many years, you had a majority slave population here. A lot of wealthy white families kept at least 10 slaves on the city properties. Look at the glass in the windows. This whole compound, this was built between 1765 and 1769. It's paid for by Colonel Miles Bruton. He was the largest slave trader in the state of South Carolina. The house was taken by the British during the Revolutionary War. This was the headquarters for British officers in Charleston. Later on, when the Union took the city, they started work on it in the 1850s, finished it in the 1870s. This is the house that Obama was talking about in his acceptance speech. He mentioned the front porches at Charleston. They held a fundraiser for his house, for him in this house. $1,000 per plate to attend. This This is the most expensive house in Charleston. It sold the summer before last for $7.1 million. It's on the market currently for $7.4 million. And this is a garage right here. It's made it look like a carriage house. It's new. The Board of Architectural Review brought up that garage 95 different times in their meetings just to make sure that it fit in. They did a good job with it. Another thing to talk about here is that at one point a man named George Alfred Trenholm owned this house. He financed blockade runners during the Civil War. Y'all see this little pink house over here on the right. It's the narrowest house, they say. It's 1,100 square feet, 5 rooms. That BMW is about as long as the house is wide. Neat place. Check it out. This one was built in 1782, and if you look up on top of the house, it's got a little room up there. That was a cupola, and in the summertime they'd open up the windows on the cupola, then open up the windows on the bottom floor to help cool the air flow through the house.
Imagine having a house that big. That's because people live in those houses. That's why the cars are made of. That's why it's
The Queen Anne Victorian style. Y'all see the rounded glass in the windows and everything? That was a big deal to have that at the time. Still is, really. Then on the right here, this is the Calhoun Mansion. It's built by George Walton Williams in 1876. He spent $215,000 building this house in 1876. This is into reconstruction. The house in shambles. This guy builds a 24,000 square foot house. It's 35 rooms. The dance floor has a glass ceiling because he wanted his daughters to dance under the stars. And it's just kind of a neat place. And he bought this house for his son. This was built about 1770. That's hand-carved wood out in front of the house there. It's supposed to look like stone. Three sisters. Not true.
shrubs or something. I think that works with this.
You see this plaque here, it talks about the Carlton Bastion. That was the southwestern corner of the wall that I mentioned earlier. There's First Scots Presbyterian on the left here. The congregation goes back to 1731. That's the date that they have on the building. But the church is from 1814. That's the only church in Charleston with 2 bell towers but no steeple. Out of 187 churches here. That's how I got Main Street. This was Aunt Charlotte's house in that movie. And across the street, this is where they burned the effigy of the king in that movie, between the 2 center columns. This is South Carolina Society Hall. It's home to high society functions. This is where cotillions held every Wednesday, for instance.
Every Wednesday.
St. Michael's Alley, if you go to St. Michael's Alley on the right here, St. Michael's is the oldest church building. It was completed in 1761. here. It's named for George Washington. We got a statue of him there. This park is here to serve as a fire break, really. It's a buffer. This is called a fireproof building. It's never supposed to be. The most expensive slave you can buy in Charleston is a mulatto woman in between the ages of 16 and 20. There's a book out right now. The name of the book is A Golden Haze of Memory, and it's all about the Charleston Renaissance and how the 1920s was when Charleston first started to gloss over its history. You know, the premise of the book is that people here have had a tendency to look at the history through a golden haze and seeing it for being better than it actually was. That aside, you know, if he can't see you, then he might kick or something when you touch him.
Bobby's the one I usually drive.
Dígale adiós a Bobby que se acaba de...
Thank you.